There is a kind of power most people are not ready to face. It is not the kind of power that comes with money, or titles, or applause. Those are surface-level illusions, toys for the insecure, distractions for the weak. The power I am speaking of is darker, heavier, more dangerous. It is the kind of power Machiavelli whispered about in his writings, the kind of power that unsettles the faint-hearted and seduces the ambitious. But let us be clear, this power is not a gift. It is not handed to you because you were born into privilege, or because you wear a crown, or because a crowd chants your name. No. This kind of power is forged brutally in the silence of your own mind. It is the power of complete control over yourself. And if you are honest, you are not ready for it. Because here is the truth. Most people live as prisoners of their own emotions. They are tossed around like leaves in the storm of desire, anger, envy, and fear. They speak of freedom, but they are chained to every impulse. They talk of strength, but collapse at the first hint of discomfort. They desire greatness, yet cannot even govern their own tongue, their own temper, their own cravings. Machiavelli wrote of princes and rulers, of deception and strategy, of survival in a world where weakness is punished without mercy. But what few realize is this: the lessons of power he described are not only political, they are personal. They are not just about ruling others, they are about ruling oneself. And here lies the paradox. The darkest power Machiavelli hinted at is not the manipulation of others, but the absolute, unshakable mastery of one's own inner empire. But to reach this level, you must first walk through fire. You must burn away illusions, break the chains of destructive emotions, and stare into the mirror until you recognize the tyrant you have allowed to rule you all along. Your own undisciplined self. This video is not for the faint-hearted. It is not for those seeking comfort or easy affirmations. It is not for those who want quick tricks to appear confident while trembling inside. This is for those who are ready to confront Machiavelli's darkest lessons and see that they are not about cruelty towards others, but about the ruthless discipline required to conquer yourself. If you stay with me, you will feel a shift inside you, a stirring, a dangerous hunger, not for dominance over others, but for dominion over your own nature. And once you taste it, you will never look at yourself or the world the same way again. The first door, why most will never enter. Let us begin with a painful truth. Most people are not ready for power because most people are terrified of silence. Silence reveals who we truly are. In silence, there are no distractions, no escape routes, no excuses. You cannot drown out your weakness with music, or numb your fears with chatter, or hide behind the applause of others. Silence strips you bare. And that is why the masses fear it. Machiavelli knew this. He observed rulers who pretended to be strong, but in private were consumed by anxiety, envy, lust, and rage. Outwardly, they commanded armies. Inwardly, they were slaves to themselves. Do you see the tragedy? What use is it to command legions if you cannot command your own mind? What use is it to conquer cities if your emotions conquer you every day? And so we arrive at the first of Machiavelli's darkest power lessons. Rule yourself more ruthlessly than you would ever rule another. That is where Stoicism and Machiavelli collide. For the Stoics taught that the true battlefield is within, and the true tyrant is your undisciplined passion. Power over others is nothing compared to the power of a man who cannot be broken by his own weakness. But here is why you are not ready for this kind of power. It demands sacrifice. It demands that you walk away from comfort, from indulgence, from the soft lies you've told yourself for years. It demands that you look in the mirror and admit, without excuses, that you have been your own worst enemy. The second door. Emotions are tyrants. Ask yourself this. How many decisions have you made out of anger? How many promises have you broken because of lust? How many opportunities have you destroyed because of fear? Each time you were convinced you were acting freely, but in truth you were in chains. Machiavelli knew this. The man who cannot govern his emotions is predictable, and the predictable man is easily controlled. Anger can be provoked. Desire can be baited. Fear can be exploited. Do you see it now? Without self-control, you are not powerful. You are a puppet. The strings are simply invisible. This is why Stoicism demanded discipline. This is why the philosophers spoke of self-mastery as the highest form of freedom. Because once you master your emotions, no one can bribe you, seduce you, or frighten you into betrayal. You become untouchable, unconquerable, a fortress built not of stone, but of unshakable will. But again, this is not the path most will choose, because taming your emotions feels like death at first. It feels like giving up something essential. You are addicted to your anger because it makes you feel alive. You are addicted to your desires because they make you feel powerful. You are addicted to your fears because they give you an excuse to avoid responsibility. To surrender these is to strip yourself bare. To admit that you have been living as a slave. To admit that you have never ever truly been free. And most people would rather remain in chains than endure that kind of honesty.
The third door, the price of freedom. But let us imagine for a moment. What if you had the courage to break those chains? What if you could stand in the center of chaos, insults hurled at you, temptations paraded before you, threats whispered in your ear, and remain unmoved? What if your calm could not be broken, your focus could not be shaken, your will could not be bent? That, my friend, is Machiavelli's darkest power. Not cruelty, not manipulation, not deceit, but absolute inner mastery. It looks cruel because the world thrives on weakness. It looks manipulative because the masses cannot understand those who no longer bend to their games. It looks deceitful because when you refuse to be swayed, they call you cold, heartless, inhuman. But what is inhuman is to live as a slave to your impulses. What is inhuman is to never awaken to your true strength. The price of this freedom is high. You must give up the illusions that comfort the weak. You must abandon the need for applause. You must stop chasing the approval of those who live in chains. You must learn to stand alone. And that is why most are not ready. Because true freedom feels like exile at first. The first door has been opened. We have stepped into silence. We have admitted that most of what we called freedom was slavery to emotions. We have seen that Machiavelli's shadow is not cast outward, but inward. Now, let us go deeper. Let us walk through the corridors of power as Machiavelli saw them and strip them of illusion. Each lesson he left behind seems ruthless, even cruel when directed at others. But when turned inward, when applied to ourselves, they become tools of liberation. Because here is the paradox. To wield true power over others, you must first wield absolute power over yourself. and that requires a kind of darkness most are unwilling to face. Lesson 1. Appearances deceive, reality reveals. Machiavelli is famous for saying that it is not necessary for a prince to be truly virtuous. It is only necessary to appear virtuous. To the shallow reader, this sounds like deception. To the fearful, it sounds like manipulation. But let us dig deeper. What is the real message here? We spend our lives obsessed with appearances. We want others to see us as strong, as confident, as respectable. We wear masks, not only in public, but even in front of ourselves. But the mask is fragile. It cracks under pressure. It shatters under betrayal. It melts under temptation. Machiavelli's warning is this: if you rely on appearances, you will be destroyed when reality arrives. So what must we do? We must turn his lesson inward. Become the reality others only pretend to be. Do not appear disciplined, be disciplined. Do not appear calm, be calm. Do not appear courageous, be courageous. Because here is the Stoic truth. The world is not swayed by appearances for long. The storm of life always exposes the foundation, and when it does, the mask wearers collapse. So ask yourself, are you still playing the game of appearances, or are you quietly forging the unbreakable steel of reality? Lesson 2. Control or be controlled. Machiavelli saw the world in stark clarity. If you do not rule, you will be ruled. If you do not impose order, disorder will impose itself on you. Most people recoil from this, thinking it is cruel. They imagine it is about dominating others, but no, look inward. Your emotions work the same way. If you do not rule them, they will rule you. If you do not control your anger, it will control you. If you do not command your fear, it will command you. And once again, we see the bitter truth. Most people are not rulers of themselves. They are subjects. Their emotions are tyrants, and they obey without question. Anger snaps its fingers, and they lash out. Lust whispers, and they betray their own values. Fear stares at them, and they collapse. Machiavelli's lesson becomes our call to arms. Either become sovereign over yourself or live as a puppet. There is no middle ground. Lesson 3. Love or fear. One of Machiavelli's most infamous statements was this: "It is better to be feared than loved if you cannot be both." The world has misunderstood this for centuries. They think it is advice for tyrants. But let us look again. What is love without fear? It is dependency, softness, indulgence. It is the comfort of approval. And approval is fickle. It shifts with moods, with gossip, with envy. But fear is respect. Fear means no one dares test your limits because they know you cannot be broken. Now, let us not apply this outward. Let us apply it inward. Should you love yourself? Yes, but what kind of love? Not indulgent love. Not the kind of love that excuses weakness, that whispers, "It's fine to be lazy today. It's fine to give in. It's fine to break your word." That is not love. It is betrayal. You must love yourself as a general loves his soldiers, with a sternness that demands discipline, with a fierceness that tolerates no weakness, with a mercy that is never indulgence. And you must fear yourself, not with terror, but with respect. You must fear disappointing your higher self. You must fear the shame of betraying your own potential. So ask yourself, do you love yourself in weakness, or do you love yourself enough to demand strength? Lesson 4. The Weapon of Silence. Machiavelli wrote that a ruler must learn when to speak and when to remain silent. Words can reveal too much, and once spoken, they cannot be recalled. Apply this inward. How much of your suffering has come from words you wish you could take back? How many battles did you lose because your mouth moved faster than your mind? The weak cannot be silent. They must speak. They must vent. They must complain. But silence is power. Silence is control. Silence is a weapon that cannot be used against you. In Stoicism, silence is more than restraint. It is preparation. It is the forge where clarity is born. So here is Machiavelli's dark reminder. The one who cannot endure silence is already enslaved. Practice silence, not only with others, but within yourself. Quiet the endless chatter of excuses, of self-pity, of fear. Learn to stand in silence until the truth emerges. Because the man who can remain silent is the man no one can manipulate. Lesson 5. The Fortress Within. Machiavelli warned rulers against building physical fortresses. Why? Because fortresses make rulers feel safe, but in truth, they make them prisoners. How many of us live this way? We build fortresses of distraction. We build fortresses of excuses. We build fortresses of comfort, thinking they protect us, but in reality, they weaken us. Comfort is the fortress that turns strong men into fragile shells. Excuses are the fortress that protects weakness and keeps it alive. The Stoic path demands a different kind of fortress. Not one built of stone, but one built of character. A fortress that no enemy, no betrayal, no misfortune can penetrate. This is Machiavelli's true lesson. Do not build fortresses around your body. Build fortresses within your mind. Because walls can be broken, castles can fall, but the man whose spirit is fortified cannot be conquered. Lesson 6. Use hardship as strategy. Machiavelli observed that rulers must use difficulty to sharpen themselves, to prove their worth, to reveal their strength. The weak avoid hardship. They run from pain. They pray for ease. But power is forged in the opposite. Look at your life. Every ounce of strength you possess was born in struggle. Every fragment of wisdom was carved from pain. Every bit of fortitude was earned in moments when comfort abandoned you. The Stoics knew this. They did not just endure hardship, they sought it. They trained their minds to love the test. Because every hardship was an opportunity to harden the will, to sharpen the spirit, to rise above the masses who crumble under pressure. This is Machiavelli's darkest insight. Hardship is not your enemy. It is your weapon. But here is the painful truth. Most of you are not ready to use it. You pray for ease when you should be praying for trials. You avoid the very thing that could forge you into unbreakable steel. And so you remain weak, waiting for comfort to make you strong, when it never will. Lesson 7. Never waste pain. Machiavelli saw that rulers who wasted misfortune were doomed. They suffered but learned nothing. They were betrayed but grew bitter instead of wise. Does this not describe us? We waste pain every day. We experience setbacks and use them as excuses to quit. We face rejection and use it as justification for self-pity. We are insulted and waste the wound by turning it into resentment instead of growth. A Stoic wastes nothing. Pain becomes teacher. Loss becomes lesson. Betrayal becomes clarity. This is the alchemy of the strong. To turn every cut into fuel, every scar into armor, every fall into a step upward. That is power. That
is Machiavelli's darkness transformed into light. And finally, Lesson 8. The ruthlessness of self-honesty. Perhaps the darkest of all Machiavelli's lessons was this: never deceive yourself. The ruler who believes his own lies is already finished. What about you? How many lies have you told yourself? I'll start tomorrow. I'm not ready yet. It's not my fault. Each of these lies is a dagger in your hand turned against yourself, and the wound they create is deeper than any enemy could inflict. Machiavelli's ruthless honesty is the same honesty Stoicism demands: to strip away excuses, to expose weakness, to see yourself without illusions. Yes, it hurts. Yes, it feels cruel. But what is more cruel? To face the truth and change, or to live a lie and die never knowing who you could have been? This is why most are not ready for this power, because most would rather live comfortably in a lie than endure the agony of truth. And finally, Lesson 9. Fortune favors the disciplined. Machiavelli wrote about fortune, how chance, chaos, and circumstance shape human life. But he also said fortune favors those who prepare, who discipline themselves, who seize opportunity when it comes. And here the Stoics echo him. Fortune is not in our control, but our response always is. Discipline makes us ready for the unpredictable. Fortitude makes us calm in the storm. The undisciplined man prays for good luck. The disciplined man is ready for whatever comes. That readiness is power. That calm is power. That ability to face anything without breaking is the darkest lesson of all. Because once you reach this point, the world cannot touch you. You no longer fear what may happen. You no longer cling to what you may lose. You live free, not because fortune is kind, but because you have mastered yourself.
Closing the second door. We have walked through Machiavelli's darkest lessons and turned them inward. We have seen that appearances mean nothing without reality, that control must begin within, that love without fear is weakness, that silence is a weapon, that the only fortress worth building is within, that hardship is strategy, that pain must never be wasted, that honesty is ruthless but necessary, that fortune favors only the disciplined. And so we begin to understand, the darkness Machiavelli revealed is not cruelty toward others, it is the merciless discipline we must demand of ourselves. But the journey is not over. In the next part, we will descend deeper into the core of power itself. We will see how this darkness can be transformed into light, how Stoic mastery is the only true throne, and how those who conquer themselves wield a kind of power that even kings and emperors could never touch. We have walked through silence. We have stared at our chains. We have entered Machiavelli's corridors and turned his ruthless lessons inward. Now we stand at the final threshold. Here, the true throne is revealed. It is not a throne built on land or armies. It is not a throne secured by fear or applause. It is not a throne you can lose through betrayal, revolution, or death. The true throne sits within, and only those who have endured the crucible of self-mastery may sit upon it. The illusion of outer thrones. Let us pause and consider. How many rulers in history believed themselves powerful, only to collapse when fortune turned? Caesars murdered in their palaces, kings dragged from their castles, generals betrayed by their own soldiers. They commanded nations, yet they never commanded themselves. They sought control of others, yet they never mastered their own hearts. They conquered territories, but were conquered by lust, envy, greed, and fear. Their thrones were illusions, and illusions always crumble. Machiavelli's brilliance was in revealing how fragile outer power is,
But the lesson the world ignored, the lesson we must take to heart, is that there exists a throne no betrayal can topple, no enemy can invade, no fortune can strip away. The throne within. The throne of the man who has conquered himself. The kingdom of self. What does it mean to rule yourself? It means your anger does not rule you. It means your desires do not pull you like a dog on a leash. It means your fears do not dictate your choices. It means you are sovereign over your own mind. Think of the chaos of most people's lives. One insult and they collapse. One temptation and they fall. One fear and they run. But the one who rules himself is different. He is a kingdom in order. His thoughts obey discipline. His emotions obey reason. His actions obey principle. That is the true kingdom. That is the true empire. And once you build it, nothing can take it from you. The fire of indifference. Here is a lesson that seems cruel but is in truth liberating. You must learn to be indifferent to what does not depend on you. Machiavelli observed how rulers were destroyed by what they could not control: famine, war, betrayal, chance. They spent their lives in terror of fortune. But the Stoics taught what Machiavelli hinted: fortune cannot harm the one who does not depend on her. You will lose wealth. You will lose people. You will lose status. You may even lose health. But none of these touch your throne within. If you can learn this, if you can burn away your dependence on what is fragile, you will walk through life untouchable. Indifference is fire. It burns away the unnecessary. It leaves only steel. Most people fear this fire. They cling to their comforts, their attachments, their illusions. But we step into it willingly, because we know that everything fortune gives, fortune can take away. But what we forge in our soul is untouchable. The sword of discipline. Without discipline, there is no throne. Machiavelli spoke of rulers who fell because they indulged in weakness. They slept too much, they ate too much, they surrounded themselves with flatterers. They confused indulgence with strength, and it destroyed them. The same is true for us. Without discipline, your inner kingdom is overrun. Without discipline, your throne is stolen by impulse. Without discipline, you are not a ruler, you are a slave. So take up the sword of discipline. Wake when you do not want to. Endure what you wish to avoid. Do what you promised even when no one is watching. Every act of discipline is a stone laid in your fortress. Every act of discipline is a step toward your throne. And let us be honest, the undisciplined life is not even living. It is drifting. It is being pulled by every current. It is never standing, never ruling, never choosing. But the disciplined life, that is the life of kings.